right, hello folks, and welcome to another solo stream. Apologies for the wrong go live message on Twitch. StreamYard does not update that message, and it's really annoying, and I wish StreamYard would fix that. Hello, Astrid. How's it going? So my brain's a little fried. Had a long weekend out of town, so I'm going back and forth about streaming, but I figured why not. So I think gonna just figure out where I left off on my WebSocket stuff, and then continue with that. But as always, interrupt or not interrupt. Your questions are not interruptions. That's why I stream. If I wanted to just do stuff and not be interrupted, then I wouldn't stream. So, all right. So let's see where we're at. Whole part of your brain exploded. Hope you regain it back. So let's see where we were. Let's hit the right buttons. There we go. All right. So for those of you who haven't been following, what I've been doing is working on examples for what started out as just, let me just document what I learned doing WebSocket stuff and HTMX and Spring Boot into a little bit more of a formal tutorial. Yes, code coverage as a goal. What a terrible idea. Well, hope your presentation, working on that presentation goes well. If you need any feedback, I'm happy to provide. I really, I to a certain extent, I don't blame management for wanting easily measurable things. But then they have to understand what the impact is, and they don't. And it's kind of funny. It's like if you have a set of folks who know that code coverage as a target is a bad idea, then they'll do their best to improve it. But there's always the danger that people are just going to say, "This is ridiculous. I'm just going to game it. We know what we're doing," and neither situation is good. But for as long as I've been in this industry, everybody's always, and this is not just software development, everybody's always looking for easy metrics to measure things, because we like to measure things because we like to be able to think we're in control of things. The fact is we're not, and we can't, and it's much harder to do the other kinds of things, like actually look into what's going on in a more qualitative sort of detail level. But hello, Nets Vagabond. Welcome. All right. So where the heck did we leave off? Let's see. So we've done the WebSocket broadcaster. Let's go look. I think I had. Nope, that's not it. That's it. Okay. So I think we had finished sort of part one, which was about basically just sort of what HTMX offers, HXGet, what the target is, what the out of band or retargeting or swap target. I really think this should be called swap target. I might actually suggest this to Carson Gross, the HTMX person. We'll see. And so we did all the demo with hsget and the targeting, and how that stuff, and we did the swapping. We did changing state on the server. We showed how that can change the state on the server, and then basically any refreshes or anything like that will always get the current state. Um, we did this. So add script. We added the WS socket. So we did all this, and now right. Boy, am I glad I left myself notes. So now we're going to do a basic chat implementation. So we did some stuff where we can handle incoming message and basically just echo it back. But now we want to echo input from a single user to everyone else. Yes. Even with branch coverage, that doesn't help too much. You can, as I always say, it's like code coverage tells you that the code was executed. It asserts nothing about whether it executed it the way you want. Yeah. Yep. How to instantly get to 100% code coverage. Any failing tests. All right, so let's see. Let me close this other window. I don't need it right now. Right, so we sort of compared this versus this, and decided that actually the for loop was quite a bit easier to understand. Let's actually refactor this out into text message. Then I can do that. So what actually did I want to do here? Because I think I did that. So I did the handle text message. I got the message out of the payload. Payload is map. I got the input name. Oh, but I didn't have an actual input. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm going to copy this class. What's my chat WebSocket handler? Oh, right, I had already written this. So so let's revisit this. This is the chat WebSocket handler. No, have not finished it. I basically will be writing part one probably today or tomorrow, and then hopefully get it out this week. But I did decide that it's going to be multiple parts. So let's see. Talk about that. Yeah. Let me copy the other. Where did I put that? Here it is. Payload is map. And So let's see. So what do I want to do here? I did say my brain was not in full gear today. So let's. I don't want to cast this as a string. Let's actually pull this out. So um this is WebSocket, but I think uh oh, I wanted to do the change state over WebSocket. That was what I wanted to do here. So instead of pushing a state change on the server through a regular post request, do it through the WebSocket. All right. So let me pull this out into a variable. Pass that, and we'll put that on hold for a second. So, um, so we did that, uh, and then the other thing I wanted to do was push state change. That's actually what I'm doing. All right. So Ender Functor Zero asks about adapters from ports and adapters or hexagonal architecture. Do I ever think about combining adapters if they are always used together? You always produce a Kafka event whenever a web request comes in. No, because um, the purpose of adapters is if it's not going through the application, then I don't think that's appropriate. I think it must you generally I mean, unless you are a pure pass through, so like you get a web request and you immediately produce a Kafka event. Um, I'd honestly deploy that as just a separate little service. If it's just sort of an echo kind of thing, then there's no behavior. So then why even bother putting it in the same application? I don't like this idea of adapters that are independent of applications. I don't think I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. I'm just saying that's not hexagonal. And so I just want, I want to say something about hexagonal, which is it is not the answer to everything, right? So it is very um it's not a good idea to try to put all your implementations of all your services and everything that you're doing in sort of the umbrella of hexagonal architecture. That's saying I have a solution, let me find and apply it to all the problems that I have. And I think that's not a good idea. You need to adjust your architecture based on what you're doing. So you can totally have a service that listens for a Kafka event or generates a Kafka event whenever a web request comes in. And that's totally fine. It's just not hexagonal. That doesn't mean it's wrong. Um, Same thing. If a web request comes in, and I again I don't really know much about Camunda, that's fine. That's not hexagonal, but that's okay. Right? So not everything has to be hexagonal. So the point of hexagonal is you have a core part of your application. And I always say to folks, hexagonal is not the answer to everything. If you are integrating systems, and this sounds like an integration, then don't use hexagonal. There's no point to it. If you have no application core, use something else. Hey there, Zabiali. Have I seen the Socket.io implementation for Java? Socket.io is my understanding is a JavaScript side of things. I have not seen a Socket.io implementation for Java. So I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. I have seen uh, some other socket stuff support in Java with Spring Boot, but that's usually not needed anymore. So if you haven't already forwarded them my presentations on the topic, I'd recommend starting with that. Um, and of course, you can ask for more resources on the Discord, and I'll and there's a whole bunch in the Discord. If you search through the Discord resources channel, there's a whole bunch of stuff on hexagonal. But again, architecture architectures like hexagonal, clean, onion, vertical slice, these all have, just regular old layered. Um, you have to fit the architecture to what you're doing. You don't start with an architecture. You start with what problem are we trying to solve, and then you fit and choose the architecture based on the problem you're trying to solve and how you're trying to solve it. Join the Fried Brain Club. That's that Monday Fried Brain Club. Welcome. And so I have a couple of videos on hexagonal. I have the one that's most popular is just because it's the oldest is actually not the what I think is my current thinking on it. So I usually recommend that the folks look at my more recent um, talk on hexagonal, which I'll post the link to that. So this one is I'm posting in chat. This one's my uh, most recent sort of iteration that I've given presentation in public. That one was from the where's that from? That was from I think that was the Philly XP one. Yeah. So there is the one that's from like 4 years ago, but I've changed some of my thinking and approach since then. Um, if you've been doing stuff for 4 years and you look back and nothing has changed, then you might want to figure out why that's the case. Um, so fit your architecture to your problem, not the other way around, is basically what the message I'm trying to get across. Well, thank you very much. All right. Right. So let's put this aside. Let's put the chat thing aside. Let's put that aside. So this is the broadcaster, but what we want is I think we just want so this is that. All right, so let's continue with this one then. So what we want is um so this does a post-based button. What we want here is I think we want in a sense what we did with this one. So let's run the application just so we can see what it looks like. And let's go here. By the way, if you haven't seen this video, would appreciate if you watched it and liked it and shared it around. Basically talk about predictive TDD and my TDD game. Let's go here. I'm excited because I'm going to the Agile Open Northwest in a few weeks. So I'm going to bring a few copies of my game because I haven't actually seen people play it live since I had the prototype done. Actually, at the last time I was at the Agile Open Northwest conference, that was oh gosh, was it 4 years ago? Might have been 4 years ago. So it's been a while. All right, so let's go localhost. We want to go to, I think, just WebSocket. Socket. And let's do this. Split the window, WebSocket, and do that. So we can see both at the same time. Okay, so this is just the connect handling. This is if I click the button. Did I break it? What do I actually want to happen here? Uh, so this goes to next state. That's a post to I don't think, do I even have this endpoint? I may not even have this endpoint. Oh, no, I do, but it's in the post controller. That's not where I want it. So this is next state. Um, let's go to our post controller and let's grab the next state multiple targets. So this will be interesting because this will, let's grab this, put this here. Do we also make this a controller? How do I want to do that? So this is always the interesting part, is balancing sort of making it concise versus sort of correct when I'm doing a tutorial. Oh, you built a Loda, welcome. So what I'm trying to do here is, do I take this WebSocket broadcaster, right? So all this code is for a tutorial, but what I want to be careful of, and in general, this is one of my complaints about tutorials, is they structure things in ways that you wouldn't really want to do. That are either just, oh, I wouldn't sort of combine the classes in this way, or I wouldn't structure the code this way. And so I want to make it as sort of realistic as possible. But there is a balance because you do things like you have separate files for a controller versus a WebSocket handler. Um, so do I want to do that? Or do I want to just combine this into one thing? Kind of feel like I want a separate class, even though it's a little bit noisier. I think I want a separate class. So let's do that. So let's actually just grab this. We'll copy it, and this is going to be our WebSocket host controller, and we'll grab these out and take these out. And so then this is that. So it does a post. Oh, so this is interesting. I actually think I have to have it in the same class. So this is where so what's happening here is, I want the post request to come in, and as a result, not return anything to the caller, right? Not return a response to the request, but basically then send out through WebSockets, whatever the current state is. Which means they both have to share the same thing. And this is where you'd use something like hexagonal. The application would be the thing that knows the current state, and then both the post request and the WebSocket would be on adapters. But I don't want to go there just yet. Okay, so I've convinced myself that actually this does need to be part of the same thing, because this state needs to be shared. Hey there, Acid House. Yeah, spring projects don't have to be all serious and businessy. They can be fun. I do want to start my next project that's not my ensemble project. My next sort of main project, um, after basically after I do this tutorial, because this very much will also help me on implementing an online version of my TDD game. So I've had a number of requests for that, and so I want to get started on that project. But yeah, um, yes, yay! I actually have a an implementation that uses Vue for the front end, and after doing this stuff here with HTMX, there are still some benefits to using Vue, because you get sort of more componenty things on the front end. Um, but there's just not a lot of it's mostly it's really mostly layout kinds of things, and um, it's gonna be a long-term project, but my hope is sometime this year it'll be done enough that I can actually start having people play it online. Yes, oh yeah, Beltalowda. Yes, I know this is StreamYard's fault. StreamYard does not update Twitch's go live message, which I consider a bug, and they have not said anything about fixing it. So, but tomorrow actually will be a pairing stream. So my schedule with Mike is tomorrow morning Pacific time will be a pairing stream. Wednesday morning, I think. Uh, not sure about Thursday yet, but there'll be at least two pairing streams with Mike. So yeah, I realized after I pushed the go live button, it's like, oh shoot, I forgot to update the Twitch go live message, but it was too late. StreamYard. This is my I worry about tools like StreamYard doing what I see other tools doing, which is instead of finishing your features, right? So StreamYard's main thing, it's really two things, is uh, be able to present the stuff like you see it, right? So code over here and me over here, and combine the screen in different ways, and pull the chat from YouTube and Twitch into one unified thing that I can see, and then multi-stream out to multiple things. But like, can you finish that, folks, before you start adding other things like webinar support? Like, I'm not using you for webinar support, sorry. And I see this happen again and again with like ConvertKit and Padia, and it's like, can you finish and flesh out, right? You got the 80% features. Can you finish the rest of the other 10 or 15? I don't expect you to do 100% of everything I want. But like StreamYard doesn't update certain settings on YouTube. So I like it ultra low latency, and there are actually 3 different latency settings on YouTube, and I like ultra low so that I can be more interactive. Uh, and it doesn't update the Twitch Go Live, and it doesn't allow certain other subtle configurations of these stream things. Like, and I understand, when you just come out, great, but you've been out for a while, and I'm not going to renew, right? So yeah, profit motive, but, like, I don't understand product management from that point of view. Yeah, same here. I don't like this we're gonna start including like ConvertKit did this where it's like, you're now gonna be able to sell digital products through us. Like, no, I signed up for you to do email really well, and you still kinda suck at email. Sorry, ConvertKit, your email creation, UI kinda sucks. So can you spend more effort on that because that's what I'm paying you for and not for selling digital products? I have a digital product platform for that. It's called Podia. But Podia, why are you getting into email? I've got ConvertKit for that. And I don't like your email and I don't like your blog posting. And I'm not crazy about your community stuff. Finish your product before you add other features. Or if you're going to add other features, great. But like also finish your product. It's so like I pay I happily pay for these services because for the most part, they're really good, but they're not done, and they really need to done. Yeah, and what's gonna happen is I will be switching away from ConvertKit, and I will be switching away from Podia this year, so that's fine. Then they've lost me as a customer, and it means that because there are other tools that are more targeted and doing a better job of what I want, and so, yeah, that's fine. They'll sell to others, and they'll lose me. Yeah, featureitis, but, like, some of these things, like, I can't imagine it would take your developers more than a few days total to implement some of these, like the go live message on Twitch. That's an API call, maybe 2. I've done it. So what's the problem here? All right. Yeah, MVP, but these tools are well past MVP. These tools are like they've got, they've got market fit, and so you want me so now you gotta keep me because churn is the biggest thing, and, like, I'm gonna churn right out. Honestly, I this is exactly my thought. I'm wondering is, like, why can't you add these tiny little things that I've looked, they are one API call, right? So the YouTube thing, one API call. They're probably already making. It's a parameter to an API call you're already making. Why can't you do that? How bad is your code? So everyone says like, we don't need to our code to be whatever because we're if it's slow to add features. I worry about the quality of your code, and I worry about the quality of StreamYard's code. They have not done much in terms of features that I care about. I can't remember the last feature that they added that I actually cared about. So all these products, I don't see me. I don't unless they get on the ball. I'm not going to be paying for them in after my subscriptions are up. Yeah, well, churn at some point is going to be a big issue. I think churn is so important, right? And churn means you are gaining customers, but you're also losing customers. The most expensive thing for companies is gaining customers. That's the most expensive thing that they spend money on is getting new customers. But you want to keep your old customers because they're otherwise the lifetime value of a customer goes down, and no investor likes to see that. I invest in some startups, and the last thing I want to see is high churn because I know that all you're doing is basically messing up and not fulfilling what your current customers expected, and I'd wanna know why. It's very much short term, like, looking at the wrong again, sort of looking at the wrong metrics. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's like, StreamYard has me because the layout stuff is just good enough, just barely good enough. I would love much more flexibility that other tools support, but it's just good enough so that I'm like, all right, like, do I like this layout? No, not really. Would I like transparency? 'Cause I have a green screen behind me. StreamYard does not support transparency. Are you kidding me? It is 2024. Every single other streaming platform supports transparency. Why don't you? This is not something you develop. It's an out of the box thing from some library. Probably in the libraries you're already using, it's already there. But it doesn't have it. And so now I have this side by side, and so all this space below, it's wasted. Um, but it's like it's just good enough, and there's some other stuff. So bringing in guests is the main feature besides the multi-streaming that keeps you in the StreamYard. But otherwise, I'll and if it doesn't get better, I'm just gonna go back to OBS. And so I still do a lot of solo streams using OBS because StreamYard's uh, basically its streaming support and so on is just not what I want for that. So unless they kick it into gear, I'm gonna leave them and I'm just gonna go to a service that just does the multi-streaming. So there's another one called Restream. I wouldn't use their studio or anything. I would just use them for restreaming. And then, then StreamYard's lost me as a customer. And I'm paying for like not the entry level. I'm paying at a higher level. And it's like, but you lose a bunch of customers like me and you're out of business. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'm not their primary customer. Whatever. The one thing I will not do is write my own. Like there's a whole class of products where it's like I could absolutely write my own replacement for and just do that. And I've done that for some things, but video and so on is not something I want to do. Or I might just not need it anyway if Comcast Xfinity ever gets better upload speed which they've been promising for this is like it's available. It's like, no, not really. Because once I can do that, then I'll just multi-stream myself. And then I don't need StreamYard. So they're gonna have to do more to keep me because I can I have options. When I have options, I might take them. I really think I was surprised. It's like, am I just missing this feature or is it just not there? It's just not there. It's just not there. I don't get it. All right, let me get back to code. Okay, so what I want is this stuff in terms of these things, and I think I'm not going to do the multi-state because I think actually that's a bit much. So actually, let me undo. Let me just delete this class. Let's try again. So let's grab. Let's just grab. Let's just change this, and this is change the state with multiple targets, and we'll basically grab this thing and we'll put it into the broadcaster. So if I mark this as a REST controller and stick in a post mapping here, we'll go ahead and create a field for that. We don't want to return this. In fact, we don't want to return anything. So this is next state WebSocket socket. because this basically connects to this more more precisely that way. So the idea here is this is the post request coming in, WebSocket broadcast out. Then this example will be a button via the WebSocket that does a WebSocket send. Whoops, a WebSocket send that would go through the handle text message. So that's what we're doing here. Um, but we're still here. Okay. So let's see. So we do this. And so the side effect of this is we need to broadcast an update. Um, but actually, we'll just call send. What's the message? What the message we want is basically the current state of the active. So here we'll want our swap target because we want to do two things as a result of this. So we want to update button text and then update current state. So this is the ID that we're going to replace. So that will be that'll be the update current state. So our swap target ID equals that. And inside of that, so let's close our swap target. Inside of that will be the current state, which will be yes. We'll do formatted. We'll just grab that. There. So that'll target this guy. And then we want to update the button text. So we'll have update button text. And that's also going to be a swap target. So note that swap target here, this HTML element is irrelevant. So what I've decided to sort of standardize on is when I'm sending a response from the server and I want to target using what's called the out of band swap, which I think is, as I've said many times, I don't like that name. I prefer sort of targeted swap. So what we're doing is we're saying find the ID here, and so this ID is this is state. This is post result state button. And so the element here doesn't matter. We just need some kind of HTML element that has an ID. And all it does, HTMX will look at this ID and say, basically find it in the DOM, find it on the page. It's like, oh, it's here. let me then take whatever is here and replace the content of the element, uh, which is by default, that's the by default inner HTML replacement. Um, what's the word? Replacement thingy. Brain not in gear. So here what we want is the button. Actually, this is the button text. So this is actually what we want here. What we want here is the current state, which is if it's active, then we want that. Otherwise, we want that. Now we want to actually send that. And we can basically just concatenate the two and just send both of those back. So we'll say send update current state plus update button text. We'll just add an exception. Okay. So this toggles the state. Updates the current, generate the update current state, which is this, and then update the button text, which will basically be one of those. So if this works correctly, which it should, here we want the HX swap to actually be none. So what this means is the post request, right? This post mapping request, even though it returns void, you still end up getting a message returned. It basically just no content. And if you set inner HTML, this might be replaced with an empty string. What we actually want to replace with is generated over here. So if this works correctly, we'll rerun our application. Refresh this page, refresh this page. Click me. Whoops. Close. So it says currently active, but I appear to have deleted the button. What did I do wrong? Oh, I forgot to specify how I want the swap to happen on this end. So here I want HX swap out of bounds. See, I say out of bounds. It's out of band. The target. This should be inner HTML. Why is that not the default? And this one should also be that. There we go. So note that as I do this, both this and this and this all change when I click this button, whatever side I click it on. So yay. All right. So this button is reacting. This button basically sends the post request, and then we broadcast out though through the WebSocket. So that's HTTP request in, WebSocket out. What I want with this example, is use WSSend to do the post, right? So I want now here not to use HTTP at all. I want to use the WebSocket transport to send this request. Oh yeah, as it has. I mean, that it's great. It's great. Absolutely. Yeah, and totally like makes security stuff much easier. Something that I'll get to probably not today is some of the authentication stuff, um, or the authentication authorization WebSocket related stuff. All right, so that works. Let's do a commit. So post in WebSocket broadcast out. I'm sure I did other things, whatever. All right. So now, um, I'm just fascinated by how IntelliJ is deciding how to indent some of these text blocks. Like this is indented 12, or it's indented 4 from the triple double quote. This one though is here, and I don't, and it's basically indented. I don't understand I don't understand IntelliJ indentation policy on these text blocks, but whatever. Yeah, Pixie report. That's kind of what I thought. I wonder. So I think that's true. Yeah. So let's check the docs on that. Oh, Astrid, I'm afraid to tell you, this is normal for me. All these tabs. Um, this is not the only window that has this many tabs. I have a problem. I probably have 500 tabs open. Yeah. So let's take a look at this. Let's go here, HTMX, the HX swap. We actually want HX swap. So because HX swap OOB, if it's not specified, I don't know. So here it's like the first div will be swapped into the target in the usual manner. So whatever the return and however that handles it. Yeah, so if it's not specified, um, this is what happens. So if a selector is given, right, the ID, which is what I use as the selector, all elements matched by the selector, in this case only one, will be completely swapped. So the element, so by default, and it would be nice if this was more clear. By default, it's an element swap, which is what we observed. So that makes sense. Yes, I agree, Astrid. That's yeah. It's like what is usual? If you're gonna say usual, then at least link to what that usual is. So for HX swap OOB, if you don't specify it, then it which uh, means you haven't specified an HX swap OOB, then then that's what happens. Yeah, and that makes sense. So let's make a note to ourselves that that's happened. So HX swap is inherited. Um, Not an HX swap OOB. So basically, it's kind of like the default is outer HTML. If you don't specify it at all, it's like you did an outer HTML. So it just throws away the old element, pops in the new one. Yeah. So one of the reasons this sort of turned into more of a tutorial is I was a bit frustrated with the lack of quality, what I call worked examples of HTMX. Yeah, that's where the button went. So what happened was, um, we did if we didn't have this swap, it basically, I assume it kept it as a, I don't actually, it probably replaced it as a swap target, which is a meaningless element, and it basically, I think it's just treated as a p. So let's try it again, uh, and we can then go and inspect the HTML. Let's go here. So let's go now inspect. Yeah. So it did a complete replacement. And so yeah, so it just treats it as a regular text node with no other markup or anything. Whereas we saw with the one where we did have the swap OOB, right? So on this one, the target was this H2, and so the H2 remained with all of its other stuff, and just the content was changed. So this did the inner HTML, and this basically did the outer HTML. So it tossed away the button completely, threw in the swap target, and there we go. Yeah. Yep. The more I do this, the more I feel like I I I have a presentation on sort of just learning in general and how you can use it to inform things like documentation. Um, but I've had a bit of folks asking about, hey, can you sort of expand on that specifically as it pertains to tutorials and documentation? So I might do a more longer specific thing on basically the approach I'm taking in writing this particular tutorial. Yeah, so this technically has a node because it's called swap dash target is the element, but that element, and this is something that was, way back when HTML5 came out, is like, hey, you can totally define your own element, and if the browser doesn't know anything about it, it'll just use some good default. I do. It really is, and that's why uh that's why, like, the current book we're reading in the book club, The Programmer's Brain, which, by the way, folks, you're totally welcome to join. Um, we're picking it up with so it's still early. We're just about to finish chapter 2 and get into chapter 3 a week from yesterday. So in 6 days on Sunday, we'll discuss it. So you're welcome to join. Just hit me up on the Discord. And yeah, it's really it for me it's I studied it because I wanted to learn more about how people learn, since that's kind of my job, is getting people to learn. Uh, but I also have long been uh, kind of an amateur research, not researcher in terms of performing research, but researcher in terms of reading research and sort of integrating it and so on. So there's a lot of very interesting stuff that yeah, you I was talking with some folks this past weekend about that. It's like, I hope I'm not like just, overwhelming you with pieces of use of information that I find really interesting. Because once you get me started on that, it's really hard to stop. Uh, so anyway, so that's what's going on here. So when doing a targeted replacement, uh, replace the entire element. Otherwise, you can see, so if you specify HX swap OOB to true, uh, oh, that's interesting. So it's basically as if you had specified true. HX swap OOB. Now we know what's going on there. Let's go back. Um, yeah, it's there's lots of non-evidence based. So there's teachers, and then there's people who educate teachers, and then there's standards, and it's honestly it's a political mess. It's just a mess. There is evidence-based research, and a lot of folks just don't use it. Oh, that's interesting. An actual degree program. Yeah, it totally deserves it. Hey there, Base Bleem. Yeah, there's so some of the stuff that I'm trying to post, and like I could give you really I was trying to read on the plane this weekend. I was trying to read a book, and I was like, I can't read this. Like there's at least 2 words per paragraph that I need to look up. Um and so I'm trying not to provide studies that use a lot of terms and assume a lot of knowledge. Yeah, STC is sort of, I think, what we call it here in the US. Yeah, it's definitely, and it's also the Write the Docs, WRITE, Write the Docs. That's an organization that holds conferences a couple of times a year. And actually, one of my talks on human learning was at one of their groups. Um, Great. All right. So this worked exactly as we want. Now what we want is WebSocket in to broadcast WebSocket out. Um, so let's do that one. Uh, Okay. So now what we want, um, now we need to make a decision here. So this method handle text message is what gets the text the incoming text over the WebSocket. Um, so in this case, what we want is to change the state. So how do we want to change the state? I mean, I guess just the button could do it, uh, but the button gets posted. So what do we get? So let's drop the hidden input. Um, I think because I don't remember what we get if we just do the button. We can set the button type to be submit. Look, we've got an HX swap inner HTML here. So let's see what we get. We actually want the whole payload. So let's just give it the whole payload and see what we get. So we're going to get a bunch of headers, but I don't think we get anything else. And I think that's why I had the input field. I don't know if I can put something on the button to change that. Let's take a look. Hey, Sweetie. Let's take a look. What did I do wrong? Add some logging in. So here we want so this is our target. Oh, I didn't get the full target name correct. There we go. That's why. All right. Right. So here's our stuff. We see the headers. So we find out who triggered it, which was the WebSocket form. What the incoming URL is, but there's no other data. So I wonder if we can send something in via the button or if we need an actual input. So can we say name? Do that. And then value. I have no idea if that's gets sent across. Oh, it does. Oh, well, that's awesome. All right. So what we can do is we can create a name value pair, uh, and that will get sent across as a piece of data in the. So I think it's kind of funny. It's like for the most part, HTMX you're not going to use JSON, but when it does basically send stuff over the WebSocket, it basically sends it as a JSON blob. So what we can now do is we can basically create a name value pair that will tell us that this is a command. So the name is going to be I'm going to call it a WebSocket command, and the value is change state. And so what we'll do then um, is if the payload is map, um, I mean, to a certain extent, we don't really need a name value pair. We can just have a name. Uh, because it depends how we want to do that. I don't know. Yes, pickle, Pikl, I believe. Any, I thought it was more of an alternative to YAML, but maybe alternative to both. I hate YAML. And JSON's fine for certain things, but not as like configuration data. Um, unlike a lot of the Apple open source projects, this one actually looks interesting. Let's do contains key WebSocket command. And if so, then we will do a send. We'll actually do the same thing that we do here. We'll update the current state, right? So that's this thing. And then we will update the button text, and that's this thing. What we want though is we want these IDs to be the the other ones. Yeah, it feels like it's more of a YAML killer, which I'm totally fine with. I don't. We use so much JSON for inter-service transport that I don't see that getting replaced. But I certainly see YAML getting replaced. I don't know that there's anybody who likes YAML 100%. Yeah, I actually prefer tab separated, as Mike and I are doing with the song, and not because of importing from spreadsheets, but tab is a character that you don't generally or pipe separated. But commas make the parsing harder. But yeah. All right, so let's do this. So let's say broadcast current state, or just broadcast state. And then we can What happens if I don't think I want to. So let's broadcast. Actually, I'm going to undo that. Like again, I'm trying to balance good code versus like readable tutorial stuff. So that's post. So if we do that, we'll do this, but this is prefix with a WS, and this is that. This is terrible code, but this is not meant to be clean code. Not yet. All right, let's see. All right, close. It updated the button. But oh, I didn't swap the silly me. I didn't actually update the state. That would help. The other thing is it didn't seem to update the WS post. Oh. What's the other? Okay, let's just rerun it. There we go. Look at that. So you can see that these buttons are updating the state. So currently active, activate, currently active, currently inactive, activate, currently active. And both to the server and from the server is now happening over WebSocket. So we can see them synchronized, whereas these are happening over a post in and then a broadcast out. Let me update. What is this? I'm just going to make them the same. Okay. So is the latency different? I mean, this is all localhost, so it's not going to be noticeable. Where it would matter is if the server is much further away. Plus, it would also depend on, and honestly, I no longer know how the browsers internally work. Would it open up a new? So the WebSocket remains open, so there's no additional time spent sort of setting up the TCP level connection. Whereas for the HTTP post request, there might be a need to set up a connection, then send the HTTP message. And it depends on does it keep that sort of pipe, that connection open or not. So for the post might have a slight bit of additional latency over the WebSocket. And I generally want to lean towards using the WebSocket because it's already there. Why not do everything over the WebSocket? The downside is it's a little bit more complex to handle. Uh, but that's where you could probably write a class that makes this easier. Because right now, obviously, I'm having to look. Oh, is this incoming thing a WebSocket command and so on? But obviously, there you could write your own annotations and things like that, which I might actually do. Yeah, so we could look at the network tools. That's my bet as well. I don't know what the limitations are. I don't know if there's sort of a timeout. I honestly don't know, and that stuff changes. So, um, I mean, I don't think there's anything noticeable for this versus this. If you're seeing it, you have better eyes than I do. But if we open up, so let's do this. Let's go to network, and we'll look. Yeah, we'll just keep all. I mean, it's all local host, so it's all like super fast. Uh, WebSocket. Why am I not seeing? Whoops. Let's try it again. Oh, because it's all under this WebSocket. So here, I mean, heck, it's the same 2 milliseconds. It's like whatever the minimum amount of time that it can measure. Um, so all the state changes are happening over this WebSocket state connection. Uh, so yeah, there's certainly at this um, from my browser to my server on the same machine, there's no difference. And I doubt there'd be much observable difference unless you're like really far away. So maybe, if I put this up on a server here in California and you in Europe, it's possible you'd notice some difference. I doubt it. And the amount of data is so small, it all fits in a packet anyway. So yeah. So that's our data. That's the time. So we can see that the WebSocket command came in, and then 3 milliseconds later, the response came back. So I don't know, maybe the WebSocket's a millisecond longer, but whatever. So there we go. I think that's it for that. So WebSocket host in WebSocket. All right. That's that. Yes, exactly. Measure profile first, then figure out what you need to fix. I already have this. What's interesting is this one. Um, and that's definitely related to this. 'Cause what do we get? I think we get what do we get? We get a connection. So here, um, I don't think we get much. Like we get an ID, but that ID is just for the standard WebSocket session. Uh, yeah, so if we want to now associate it with the users, it's really, oops, um, this really needs to come first because we have to authenticate before we can associate with users. So this is that. So I had something with, so authorization and WebSockets. So uh, do I have? That's a good question. If not, I'm going to have to add it. Um, no, I don't, but I will add it. So apparently it reuses the other stuff. Um, and so just in our WebSocket security config, we need to provide uh, we need to enable WebSocket security. So what'll happen? So the way do they provide a diagram here? No. So I will say if you're writing documentation, especially, I don't know, I think this applies to a lot of things, but especially this kind of documentation where there's communication between client and server, diagrams should be required. I think it should be severely frowned upon to not supply any diagrams for this stuff because there is back and forth. And mainly thinking about this inbound connect message uh, happens as part of, I believe, the the WebSocket setup. And I forget the WebSocket setup protocol. You basically have to, in fact, you might even see it. here um, in the network. Let's see, will we see it? It would help if the thing was running. Yeah, so we see is there's a 101, which is change protocol, and then everything else is over WebSocket. So we could look up WebSocket. Here we go. Always go to the source. Yeah, simply just add this annotation. Just. Is this what we want? The WebSocket. This is, this is a sub protocol. That's not what we want. 6455. That looks right. Yeah. WebSocket protocol. So 2 parts, handshake and the data transfer. This is the handshake. So this is the upgrade request. So we're basically send a message, which is a GET request, saying, please upgrade us to WebSocket. The response is the 101 switching protocols. And then we have some WebSocket key. We've got the switching protocols. And that's it. So the security model. Uses the same origin model. That makes sense. And there are sub protocols. Not going to worry about that. There's the WS connection string, opening handshakes. Yeah, so this is the connect. So that's proxy. Just lost it. So it looks like when it does the connect, it's going to require a CSRF token unless we turn it off. The security context holder, that's the thing that would hold the principal and the authentication stuff. So I'm a little concerned about this because we're not using the messaging architecture. We're not using Stomp. We're just using the lowest level WebSocket, and I'm not 100% sure this actually applies. And what tipped me off is there's the quote simple template stuff, which for whatever reason they shortened to simp. Maybe it was an acronym at some point. I don't know. But that's if you use the broker version, or so the broker based WebSocket stuff, but we're not using that here. Regardless, this is authorization. But this concerns me that this does not apply to what we're doing. I think this is the really what's happening. Is it's just going to use whatever you use to initially set up, right, your initial request to the page. Um, that's what you get. Right. So whatever authentication information is found in the HTTP request when the WebSocket connection was made, which presumably means, and we can try it out, or we will try it out. Whatever get request I did, right, to, for example, where is it? Yeah, this page. So this page sets up the WebSocket connection because we've got that right here. So whatever page served this up, that seems like what we'll get. So let's try it. There's a phrase that Brian Merrick uses that I use all the time. It's like, an example would be really useful right here. An example would be great right about now. So what might that look like? Well, let's write one. So let's go ahead and add Spring Security. Yes, Merrick's maxim. A diagram would help. Do we want an OAuth 2 client? I don't want to write authentication. I could use kind. Now that we know how to set that up, it'll take all of 5 minutes as opposed to the 2 hours. Let's just do basic security for now, and then we'll add on the OAuth 2 client. Oh, 323 came out. I can upgrade to 323. Why not? Well, I guess the why not is it's going to scan a whole bunch of things. Wow, that's really doing a lot of work. But in the meantime, let's set up basic Spring Security. Let's just do username and password. I always, whenever I look at this, I always feel like it should be labeled, folks, do not do this. Do not do this at home. Let professionals do this. And you are not a professional. Which applies to me. Because, like, I think this is just don't do this. Use somebody else. Use somebody else's, use Keycloak, use commercial services like, you know, Fusion Auth or Kind or other stuff. Don't roll your own. Don't roll your own. I mean, at least don't start rolling your own auth. But let's just copy this, because that's not the purpose of this particular tutorial. Oh, can I just paste this in? I can just paste this in. I love IntelliJ's hidden, you know, you can just click here and paste a bunch of text, and we're going to do some magical stuff like create a class for you, which it just did. I just did a paste, or paste it into various areas of your settings and live templates, and that's how you can import easily as opposed to doing other stuff. All right. So our security config, any request authenticated? No, we don't want to do that. What we'd like to do is request matcher. So we only want to authenticate our WebSocket page, which I think is just and for that we want authenticated. So weird not to end a line with a semicolon. Yeah, what? It's deprecated. I get the feeling this is not safe for production. I totally get this. This is totally appropriate. Like, yes, do not. It is acceptable for demos. But yes, do not do this. So I'm glad they deprecated it. So we're just going to do user password. That's fine. It'll have a role of user. For now, that's fine. Yeah, I would clarify professional as you get paid to do security. That is your job, not that you get paid and you happen to do security as part of your job. You are a security professional if that is your job. Yeah. I believe it will. We'll find out. Yes, and you continue to, and you don't lose your job. Yeah. Although that doesn't necessarily tell you you're actually a good professional. There are people who should have lost their jobs in certain cases and did not. Let's run it and let's see what warning we get. Yeah, right here. Considered unsafe for production. It's kind of funny. You almost, I almost think like, couldn't you put it in a different color to stand out even more? So it's going to secure any request. Oh, this is too long. Let's do that. Secure any request. Yeah, whatever. Adding welcome page. Okay. So let's. Yeah, I almost feel like if it's not running at localhost, you should just not even start with this authentication. Let's go and I think we can close that. And we'll close that. Actually, I'll close that. Localhost. This should be fine. No, I didn't specify anything for anybody else. Let's do that. And that would not be a bad thing. Oh, what did I do wrong? Oh, I got the order wrong. Okay. There we go. It's a little misleading, that message, because I didn't use MVC matchers. I used request matchers, but underneath it uses MVC matchers. All right. So let's try this again. Right. So authentication needed here. But if we want to go to WebSocket, now we need to log in. User password. You're logged in. So presumably, so the question now is when I get a WebSocket request, how do I figure out who the principal is? That's a good question. Well, let's look at WebSocket broadcaster. So when we connect, oh, there it is. Get principal. Ta-da! See what that does. So Sweetie asks, suppose you have a DB full of emails and hashed passwords. Yes, hopefully they're well hashed. Depends what you want to move towards. I mean, yeah, it depends on what you want to move towards, but the typical way to do it is basically push them through the reset password process. Because yeah, you don't have the original password, so yeah, you basically need to reset the passwords. Yeah, typically what you do, I mean, depends on if you want to force them through that process, uh, um, or if you want to have them do it on their own. Um, what I usually see is you've got a certain amount of time to do it on your own, and then we will push you and force you to reset your password. You want to move towards not having their passwords. Well, do you want me to mean they don't use passwords to log in, or that you don't control their passwords? Like, are you moving to like a third party authentication service? Because yeah, the magic login by email, there's usability issues with that. But if you're just moving that you don't want to handle that anymore, then you push them through a reset password process, and then uh, when you collect their email, you could basically redirect them to the new, let's say we're using Kind. You redirect them to Kind, and then they log in through that, and then you get your authentication. And you'd have a column in the user table, basically saying have they transitioned to the external auth, if that's what you're doing. And then at some point you scan through the table, say who has not transitioned, and force them to transition. All right, we've got a principal. Oh, look at that, they're already connected because the page reconnected. So who's our principal? Our principal is username user, and the password is protected. Well, that's good. All right, well, there's our security. That was easy. Yeah, so and this is something that I know some vendors will help you with. either directly or we'll have some documentation on how you might do that. But at the very minimum, if I were to just sort of off the cuff, what I do is, yeah, what I said is like look in the database, see if they transitioned. If they have, then just redirect to that one. So notice that we have the entire principle. I mean, uh, this was really easy. Yeah, we got the principle, and we got that with the session connected, um, because that's associated with the session, which means we will get it anytime we get the session, which we get on any communication. So if I do a button click, we got our text message received, but also we would yep, so we're connected. Hear this. And text message received from principal, and we have their granted authorities. So hey, that's it. We're done in understanding security because it's all the same. Good old principal to string. So now we could add OAuth if we wanted. And then we'd get whatever user roles and stuff from whomever. So this means that we can now associate specific users. So if we wanted to do something like sort of private chat, right? So the chat example I have is basically whoever types anything in is broadcast to everyone. But if you wanted it one-to-one or one to some group, or only to admins or something like that, you've got all the information you need to make those decisions, and that's just code. Um, Maybe I'll write an example of that. So somebody, I forget who it was, somebody on one of my streams was asking about sort of a customer service like thing. So it's an agent to customer, so a one to many kind of thing. Um, and so yeah, you you could this would be straightforward. Not easy, but straightforward. Um, I don't know what else I want to do here. They're very dumb dev. Yes, HTMX is pretty neat. Yeah. Yeah, I think once you get over the hump of realizing that you're returning HTML, and for me, understanding how the swap OOB stuff works, it's really nice. I mean, all the stuff I've got, it's like it doesn't require any. There's no JavaScript. Well, at least no JavaScript written by me, which is just fine. So let's see. Get principal. Why why can't I get the user details? I probably have to. Oh, I probably have to cast. Okay, I won't do that. Okay. What else do I want to do here? I'm sorry. My condolences. Yes, I'm quite anti-SPA for the most part. Like architectures, don't just use SPA for everything. Don't just use hexagonal for everything. Make sure it fits purpose. Exactly. All right, so let's let's do a commit. Um, what did I change here? Oh, that's just white space changes. Okay. Um, do I even need to specify with defaults if I'm using the defaults? What happens if I don't have that? Yeah. And if I do log out, not found. How do I log out? I forget how I log out. What is the default logout mechanism? um, so I've got Spring Boot Starter Secure, right? I added Spring Boot Starter Security, and I have enabled web security. um, why did logout not work? Oh my god, JSP files. Oh my gosh, oh, I am so sorry. I every, every time I open up a project that has sort of non-trivial JavaScript, like basically it has to bundle stuff together. It just like takes me so long to get it working again. Applets. That was my first paid Java application was an applet. Yeah, you can't log out. So I was trying to check out of my hotel this weekend, and the app didn't work. It's like the app was so broken. The hotel offered a digital key, and I'm like, "Why are you doing this? Like, it never works." And then you have to check in anyway. So what's the? And then you give me a key. So what's the point? And then the digital key didn't work, so I had to use the regular key anyway. And then I couldn't check out through the app, but I could through the website. Software sucks is my general uh, state of mind these days. Yeah, I could drop the cookies, but I should be able to log out because it should have set up log out. Yeah, it should set the logout filter before the authorization filter. Unless it logged me out and no, it didn't log me out. That's interesting. It said confirm logout somewhere. But that must have been a no static resource is logout. Oh, what? No static resource logout? I don't understand what that means. What does that mean? I mean, I guess I could do this, but that should be unnecessary. I don't know what that means. Really? Really? That's great. Oh, do I have an exception that I'm not seeing? No? Nope. No exception. Who generated that? The handle request. So filter chain, anonymous authentication filter, exception translation filter. So that's too late. MVC security and configuration, filter, course filter, CSRF filter. No static. I'm actually surprised I wasn't able to find. I'm going to fall back to Google. I'm kind of amazed that a search doesn't find this. Oh my god. Oh look, here it is. But I'm not using JWT. I don't understand. Like, all right. There's something I'm missing. I'm not going to worry about it now. I would like to log out though. Yeah, it requires a lot of understanding of internals, and it's the thing I struggled with the most in Spring. Yeah. Logout can be a post request, but it explicitly says right here, you can, if you request get logout, then Spring Security displays a logout confirmation page. That does not appear to be the truth. At least I've done something different. Because it's supposed to generate the get logout. Unless that was the customization stuff that I removed from here. So that's possible. I don't understand though why I would need to set this up if it's just defaults, because if it's just defaults, aren't you already using the defaults? So maybe this is what I'm missing. If so, that needs to be documented. So let's try it with that. Uh, let's go local host over here, WebSocket. We're already logged in. We want to log out. Aha. So the docs are basically saying, um, if 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 you do this, then it will set things up for you. So my guess is this form login is also setting the form log out. If you don't get log out. In fact, you don't get login either, which is what I was trying to test. I was trying to test if I remove this, what happens to login. All right, so now I can log out. So let me log out. And so now I expect, let's take this out. Whoops. Let's rerun. Oh, God. Yeah, I have two other pending PRs that I need to submit to Spring uh, with respect to the OAuth security docs. Um, but it's so painful to submit those PRs. But yeah. So if you don't set up defaults, it doesn't set it up at all, is what it appears to be. So let's refresh, go to WebSocket, and now you're just forbidden. Um, I like the person. Maybe, maybe I might need the the mental support. Apparently nobody, because I can't believe that I'm the first person who's ever encountered this. And I- to me, this goes against the Spring Boot philosophy of working out of the box. I can understand not setting up HTTP basic defaults, and maybe form login requires that. So maybe it's somewhat understandable, um, but then uh, this is insufficient because this is actually not true. So this is very misleading. Yeah. It's only true if you've done other things. All right. So let me make a note of that. Because the dispatcher type, I started writing it and I got frustrated because it was really annoying to edit because basically to submit a PR, you're basically editing the ASCII doc of this documentation. And it was actually what I did like is there's a direct link here to edit this page. So so that's really nice. But it's not quite edit this page and then takes you where you can actually start editing it. It takes you to the source of the page from which you can't edit it. You actually have to go uh, and fork it. Like the process itself could be improved a bit. Let's put it that way. So, all right. So I'm logged out. And if you don't have that stuff active, you don't get anything. Oh, you need that. Okay. Yes, it's way better than nothing. It's way better than here's the link to the GitHub project. Go figure out where the a doc file is yourself. So definitely way better than that, but still not quite there. There are other projects that make that easier. Yeah. Well, you can, because what you can do is you could take them to and provide more details on, okay, what do I do next? Um, so it could automatically put you through the process of forking the project uh, and editing the page. Yeah, Juke is I actually want to play with that more. I haven't played with it in years, but it's always been very, very, very satisfying. Yeah. Yeah, I really think that I mean, this is it's frustrating when a project is open source and they say we welcome uh and especially, projects, I think every certainly at least every project I'm aware of wants to encourage documentation contributions. Um but if you want that, you have to lower the friction to zero, right? People will submit code and go through hoops to do that. But to submit doc changes, you want to make it zero friction, because any little friction means I'm not going to do this now, right? Which is basically what's happening right now. It's like, ugh, I'm not going to do this now. So yeah, so take a look at the Juke project. Um, if nothing else, it's a very different way of interacting with data in your database, and I think it's one that should be used more. Um, I think if you sort of exceed the needs, or I guess the if you exceed what wow, brain freeze. If you exceed sort of what Spring Data JDBC provides, then Duke is basically lets you write very SQL-like uh, statements, but using very strongly typed Java code. So Juke has like any good open source project has two ways of make has a way of making money. If you want some certain features, I don't remember what, or if you're using certain databases. So basically they're saying if you're using a database that you're paying a lot of money for, you can throw some money our way. But if you're using it with Postgres, you don't have to pay. Yeah, that's totally valid. Juke give you some better type safety, but just writing SQL is totally fine. Um, very much agree with this. uh, so Dan Vega, one of my favorite Spring dev advocates, had a recent video on 5 things you're doing wrong with Spring Boot or something. I haven't watched it yet, but it's on my list. And I was thinking of doing a similar video where it's like, the number one thing you're doing wrong with Spring Boot, which is using Spring Data JPA. I think I'd get a lot of hate mail for that, though. So Dan Vega, or known as, I don't know, I don't remember what, or if you're using certain databases. So basically they're saying if you're using a database that you're paying a lot of money for, you can throw some money our way. But if you're using it with Postgres, you don't have to pay. think it's just Dan Vega. When YouTube changed their yeah, it's Dan Vega. And so, yeah, so it's 5 common mistakes Spring developers make. I haven't watched it yet, but, um, he's got good stuff. Use and love letters, yeah, great. Oh, I'm sure it would be I mean, that would be definitely a polarizing, video if I did that, or article. Yeah, so Juke, if the database itself is free, then Juke is free, barring some extreme situations. Any database that's paid, DB2, Oracle in general, I guess SQL Server, you're gonna have to pay something. Yeah, so the main problem with JPA is like so many problems. Um, is it gives you all sorts of stuff that you don't need. And so all sorts of uh, I would love for folks to tell me what projects they think JPA, which is really synonymous for most people with Hibernate, what projects they were using it for and why they thought it was a good choice, because I don't understand it. I have yet to see a project that actually leveraged the features, at least in the last 5 years. I absolutely created such projects in the early 2000s, but I've yet to see a modern, past 5-year project um, using JPA that actually needed its features of detached and lazy loading and all that kind of stuff. And I can totally understand if you're connecting to like a legacy database, right? And it's got hundreds of tables, and you want to, and you just have to read it and do stuff with it, and it's not set up in a way that you can use any other thing. That I understand. But I'm saying if it's a generally newish application, why do you want to deal with lazy loading and detached entities? I just don't understand it. And I'd love somebody to give me some compelling examples. So there's really I think there's 3 alternatives. One is, sure, you could use JDBC directly and write your own queries. You probably want to use something a little bit more abstract on top of JDBC, so something like JDBC template, or what was it? JDBI was mentioned. Um, the next level is sort of using some tool. So Juke is one, and Spring Data JDBC. It's to me that's just enough ORM. So you get the mapping, it writes the SQL for you, but you can always write your own if you need to. But it provides sort of just enough without. It's not caching, not doing detached entities, it's not dirty checking, it's not doing all this stuff and wrapping every single entity in a freaking proxy. Um, but it does just enough. You still have to write your own schema generation, but you can even work around that with some other things. And so it's just enough, and that's what I sort of default to, Spring Data JDBC. Um, yeah, I mean, if you've got if the DB schema already exists and it's not perhaps well suited, then you then you might have to fall back. Um, but I'd first take a close look. It's like, is it really just not a good fit, which it may not be. Um, and you can still use, right? So Spring Data JDBC is not, you must use it for everything, right? You do it on a per repository basis. And then you can use JDBC template. I mean, or Juke, right? Depends how much you want to sort of, I mean, Juke has its own learning curve. Uh, but JDBC templates is fine. Like if you already know how to write learning how to write the SQL queries, unless they're really complex, and if so, then maybe you want to use that. I don't see Juke as an in between. I feel like it's just a very different path. Uh, so you either want to go for more traditional ORM, which is Spring Data, JPA, and JDBC. Those are ORM, right? Object relational mappings. You create your objects, and it figures out how to map them to to SQL. Juke is just not really an ORM. So it's just a very different path. Oh, Sweetie, I just noticed your Prime resub. Thank you so much. 14 months. Thank you. Another thing StreamYard doesn't do is it doesn't forward requests and subs and stuff like that to the chat. Oh, StreamYard. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of boilerplate with JD. Like I've written direct against JDBC, and you just don't want to do that because what do you get back? You get back these result sets, and then you have columns, and you have to figure out what the column is, and then you have to figure out what type it is, and then you have to map it to the right type. And so there is a lot of boilerplate, right? There is a lot of you're just going to be writing the same code over and over again. And so for that stuff, yes, let's use a decent abstraction. But with a lot of these, like even with Spring Data JDBC, uh, you can have it do the mapping of here's the result set I get to an object, and then write your own query. So you're doing the sort of the tedious part that can be automated, and you're letting the ORM tool do that part. But it doesn't have the objects don't have to match tables. Maybe that's a not common knowledge. They just have to match what results you're getting back, right? So if you're doing a select and you're doing a join across tables, that's basically referred to as a projection, and you can map that to an object, and you're not reading result sets and parsing those out. So lots of options. Don't use JPA unless you need it. But make sure, like, and this is, if there's a theme for today, it's like, make sure the thing you're using you actually need, right? So if you're just taking requests and sending out Kafka events and you're not doing any processing in between and there's no logic, don't use hexagonal architecture. And if you have a database where you don't need dirty checking and detached things, well, then don't use JPA. Yeah, I think there is a certain, I mean, I'll be honest, I avoided knowing a lot of learning a lot about databases for the longest time. Like I am certainly no expert in SQL, but I can figure stuff out, and I have a sense of how stuff works underneath. Um, but I think I see folks spend a lot of time fine tuning their Hibernate mappings when it's just you could just write a query, figure out the query, and just write the query, and then you're good. All right.
Siri here. Let me know if I can.
Be quiet, Siri. I think that's all for today. So I mean, there's still some stuff to actually write for this. That's really the answer that we found. And so then associating connection with users, use the security principle. That's all, folks. The next step is now I got to write this stuff. turn these examples actually into text. And then I might actually turn it into a video, but I'm going to start with the text because that's easier. So in terms of streaming schedule, as I mentioned, pair streaming tomorrow. Hold on. What did Mike and I decide? So streaming tomorrow, which is Tuesday, 9 a.m. start, so 5 p.m. UTC. So great for all you Europe folks. Love you guys. Love you folks. On Wednesday, 10 a.m., so an hour later, so 6 p.m. UTC. And I'll be interspersing some solo streams in there as well. What else? Yeah, so I think I don't think I'll be doing any more streams on this stuff because I think I've got everything I needed to write the articles. So I'll probably go back to Ensembler for my solo streams. Though I do have some other stuff that I might throw in. So as usual, folks, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. And as a reminder, book club, The Programmer's Brain, never too late to join. We're only just into, almost through chapter 2. So lots of good stuff left. Lots of good stuff to catch up on. Hit me up on the Discord if you're not already a member of the book club, and I'll pull you in. What else? And just join the Discord if you're not already there. So that's it. Thanks, folks. And I will see you next time, or I'll see you around on the Discord. Have a good rest of your day. And if your brain is as fried as mine, get some sleep. That's the most important thing. Get some sleep. All right. I'll see you next time.